Hi, my name is Jeannie Morris. This is my exercise 4 in which we will be using SAS VIA. We were first asked to upload the employee attrition data set, which I have went ahead and done. And it then asks us which variables have somewhat of a normal distribution. So we're going to go to the employee attrition profile. We'll scroll over and look at both the mean and median. To identify the normal distribution, we want these numbers to be pretty similar. So we see that age has a normal distribution along with the daily rate. Employee number, employee count, environment satisfaction. Overall, we are seeing a pretty normal distribution. However, if we go down to monthly income, we see that the numbers are pretty spread out by over 1,000, so we can determine this is not a normal distribution. So let's X out of this. And we're asked to use the data binning capability to create a logical grouping for the field years at the company, which I have went ahead and done for you guys here. You can do this by going to your data and clicking New Data Item, Custom Category, and in this case we used the years at company, and I grouped them in years of 5. So we see companies that stay, or employees that stay for 0 to 5 years, the frequency is 776, but from years 6 to 10, it goes down to 448, and then years 11 to 15, it drastically reduces down to 108. Looking at this, we can see that employees are much less likely to stay with the company after 5 years, and then again, they're less likely to stay after 10 years if they had stayed past that point. This may be a result of the company not offering career advancement, but that's hard to say. We're then asked to create a hierarchy to enable drilling down from department to job role, which again, I've already done for you guys. You can do this by going to New Data Item and creating a hierarchy and inputting what you want to view. So here, looking at department to job role, which were the 2 variables we input, we see that research and development has the highest frequency, while human resources has a much lower frequency. Then we're asked to upload and use the country data set, which I've already done, and if you are able to upload more than 1 data set at a time, and they will be displayed here. And we're asked to create a bar chart for the GDP by continent, which I will display for you guys. And asks, how does the graph change when the aggregation of GDP is changed to average? So when we first create the bar chart, it gives us the information using a sum. So if we go in here, change it back to countries, so it is currently displaying the average. So we see that Europe is the highest and Africa is the lowest. This is currently filtered, which we are asked to do later on. We're asked to filter it from 1970 to 2010. So let's go ahead and look at this. So looking at the averages with it filtered from 1970 to 2010, we see that Europe has the highest GDP and Africa has the lowest. So let's go ahead and change it back to the default. And we see that the graph does change. Oceania is the highest and Europe comes in second. And then let's see how it looks as a sum rather than an average. And we then see that Europe as the top, and what used to be the top, Oceania, goes down to the bottom. We're then asked to create a bubble plot with years of education on the x-axis GDP on the y-axis, and socioeconomic status as the bubble size, with each being aggregated as an average. So let's go right here and look at our bubble chart. And to do those things, you will go into over here, and as you can see, years of education is on the x-axis, GDP is on the y-axis, and the size is the socioeconomic status. And then it says, how does the visualization change when the figure is grouped by continent and colored by continent? So rather than using the same graph, I went ahead and duplicated it, which you can right click and click duplicate page. So I did that and went ahead and grouped it for you guys. So here it displays that it is grouped by continent. It does not show it here, however, it is in fact colored by continent as well. And so it asks us how the visualization changes, and as you can see, switching in between the two graphs, the colored graph is much easier to read, not only because it's colored and you can tell by looking at the key down here which continent is which, but because it is grouped by continent, you are not having to look through so many bubbles. So it's much clearer this way. And then again, using the bubble plot from the previous question, group the data by country and add year as an animation. So again, I duplicated it and created the animation in a different tab for you guys. So let's go ahead and play this. It might take me a second because the screencast-o-matic icon is right over, but here we go. And the animation lets us visually see how the GDP changes over time in each of the countries. So we were asked to pause it at the 1990 mark so we can observe the 3 countries with the highest educational averages. So here we are at 1990, and we can highlight each of these countries. So here we see that Switzerland is one of the countries that does have the highest GDP, and years of education is at 9.64. GDP is 47,768. Their socioeconomic status is 93. And if you look at this line where it's highlighted, you can see that it does increase over time. Next, we'll look at Norway, and by highlighting it, it lets you see the years even past then. And we see again that it's pretty average down here, but it does seem to take off later on. Years of education looks like it's at 10.5. GDP per capita is 42,829, and the socioeconomic status is 96.2. And then we'll look at the United States, which also seems to be pretty average, but then seems to take off later on. The years of education is 12.2, GDP per capita is 37,062, and the socioeconomic status is 97.6. Then we're asked to work with the dataset employee attrition and answer a few questions. So I've went ahead and graphed the information using the employee attrition SAS VA Data Explorer interface. It asks, what is the value in knowing which factors lead to employee attrition? So this is asking overall, what do we think causes employees to leave a company, or what seems to be factors that allow them or make them want to stay longer. So this information is, this is a bar chart that displays both gender and marital status. So we can see here that married males are much more likely to remain in a job. This is likely because they have a family and need to support them. Then there's single males, and then males who are divorced are the least likely to stay in a job role. And then we see again here that females who are married are more likely to stay in a job versus divorced females. We were then asked, how does attrition vary across job roles? So let's look at the bar chart that I made for this. So we see that employees who their job role is a sales executive are much more likely to stay in their job role than those that are in human resources. And again, if we wanted to look back at the employee hierarchy, we see that human resources is at the bottom. So maybe here it's a case of if people in human resources are not treated as well, which may cause them to leave their job sooner than individuals in other job roles. And then we're asked, how does attrition vary across business travel? And that is here. So we see that those that are asked to travel very rarely are much more likely to stay in a job. And then it's those who travel frequently, and then non-travel. And then it asks, based on the categorical data, what hypothesis can you make regarding causes of attrition? So as I talked about in the gender marital status, it seems that marriage is a huge factor that leads employees to stay in a job role. And then what job role they have also plays a huge part. So we see here that sales executives and research scientists are more likely to stay in a job role than human resources. And again, looking at the employee hierarchy, both research and sales seem to be viewed much more highly than human resources. So respect is probably another thing that does lead or play a part in employee attrition. And then looking at travel, this one is a bit confusing because employees want to travel rarely, more than frequently, but non-travel is the least likely to stay. This may be a result of looking at job roles. A sales executive is more likely to stay in a role, and that oftentimes plays a part in travel. Salespeople often do have to travel for their job, so that may be why non-travel isn't in the middle of these two, but again, it's hard to say. I hope this video was helpful. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out.